Hello, role-playing people, and this episode is a follow-up to the lore of Paths. I feel like I focused a bit too much on raw mechanics in that one, so I felt like giving an example of this lore used in play is in order. Something a bit more story-oriented, at least one scene, as it would occur during a Demon Chronicle. So, for that purpose, we're going to start from the premise that on our fictional, non-existent previous session, Meridiel, who was very discreetly investigating rumors of an earthbound cult, was caught blindsided and knocked out. She woke up in shackles in a metal cage somewhere in a cold and poorly illuminated warehouse where she can hear faint chants of adoration coming from somewhere beyond a large sliding door. This is where our current scene begins. Meridiel chuckles under her breath and thinks to herself that whoever pulled this sorry stunt has no idea who they're messing with. Immediately, she partially assumes her apocalyptic form, enhancing her sight and gaining instant knowledge of her location in relation to the so-called throne room of the Court of Howls, one of the local courts of the fallen. With sharpened sight, she discovers that in a cage, very much like her own, there is a fellow member of the local court, the devil Salfigor, who is lying on the floor, seemingly unconscious, with a strange metal contraption that looks like a spider in between his teeth. A pool of blood has formed around his head. He probably couldn't cry out to anyone because his tongue had been cut out. Meridiel wonders why she hasn't shared the same fate, and her only answer for now is that, unlike that flashy megalomaniacal devil, she was much more discreet with using her faith, so whoever took her for whatever reason probably had no idea what she actually is. She invokes the celestial name of the Lord General of the Ministry of Lions, and the names of two of his most trusted swords, giving them as many details as possible regarding this place and the precise location in relation to the court. So now the swords know exactly where to strike should they wish to take action. But Meridiel doesn't have time to wait for a reply. She decides taking that poor excuse of a devil with her, effectively rescuing him, means that he will owe her a favor, and he is connected enough with all the right people. The first thing our malefactor does is to look for a pre-existing path to Salfigor's cage. The player rolls poorly, and as such, no path is found. Even with her hands shackled behind her back, Meridiel maintains her calm and composure. She could probably lay a path through the other cage and all the way outside to safety. That being said, she begins evoking the lore in the one tongue. The storyteller asks the player what kind of path Meridiel is going to create. Because our malefactor cannot warp this byway after its creation, she needs to get it right on her first try and on the subsequent turns, and the path needs to have a single set of parameters throughout its length. The player decides it will be 300 yards long, will allow for unseen and unheard travel, and will be wide enough to allow two people to walk shoulder to shoulder. The storyteller declares that creating a path of this length with the stated properties will require 3 successes at a difficulty of 9. 1 success for every 100 yards, and a +1 difficulty increase for each additional property. The path makes travelers unseen, that's a +1, unheard to anyone outside, that's another +1, and allows 2 persons to travel side by side as opposed to the regular 1 person, so that's another +1. Because of the high difficulty, the player decides to spend 1 temporary point of faith for an automatic success on this evocation roll. And what do you know, they score 3 successes at a difficulty of 9 in a single turn, mind you. That means in less than a dozen seconds, Meridiel brings her desired path into existence. Ah, but someone akin to a guard who must have been positioned behind a crate somewhere heard her evocation and probably recognized it as such. This person is now sticking a taser gun through the bars of the cage, aiming right for her. Initiative is rolled, actions are declared in reverse order, and they happen from highest to lowest. As his taser goes off and the darts fly through the air towards her, Meridiel steps onto the path and is taken out of 3D space. The darts get stuck into a nearby wooden crate as the guard guy, probably aware of the horrible fate that awaits him for losing the captives, begins desperately running through the warehouse, yelling for help. Help! They're getting away! In the meantime, unseen and unheard, Meridiel walks this bridge made of silver and azure between the bars of the cage, which are magnified. From this point, they look like pillars of an iron temple. Through a set of smaller wooden crates, and finally through the second set of bars into Salfigor's cage. Stepping off her bridge, she immediately becomes visible as more thugs come running to this side of the warehouse, howling at her to stop. She kicks the devil in the shin and in the arms and yells at him, "Get up already. I'm getting us out of here. Take my hand, come on." Groggy and confused, pale as death, barely getting up from the pool of dried blood, the devil just does as he is told, grabbing hold of her hands, which are still shackled behind her back. More tasers go off with their distinctive, percussive buzzing, but it's too late. Both Meridiel and Salfigor are already walking the silver and azure path to safety. It leads right through the warehouse walls and into the night air, through various cars and cranes parked outside, through matter itself as mortals know it. Salfigor, who can barely walk, tries thanking his rescuer, but he just chokes and begins coughing violently. The malefactor keeps almost dragging him along and says, "Oh, you can thank me later, hun. Right now, try not to die before I can get you running and talking again." Oh wow, being handcuffed sucks. Knowing no one can hear her, she yells out the celestial name of a local devourer, known to be very skilled in manipulating the flesh, and though she doesn't exactly get along with this individual, she manages to negotiate a pickup and the restoration of Salfigor's tongue, that he may tell her just what happened in that warehouse before he is officially interrogated by the ministries and the court. As they come to the end of the path, Meridiel looks at her devil and sees that whatever is left of his tongue, that stump, is already cauterized. The source of the blood puddle must have been the damage done to his teeth, most of which have been broken or pulled out. Her expression is that of visible anger at what they've done to him, but it slowly turns into a sad but playful smile as she says, "At least I don't have to listen to your reconciler propaganda while we wait." Both chuckle and sit, holding hands, unseen and unheard, on a silver and azure path, until a car pulls up and drives them away. The path itself fades out of existence a few days later, like it was never there. Alright, that's my quick example of at least one evocation of this lore in use. It's the first example that came to mind, really. It's probably not the best, but I think despite the fact that these evocations can have very permanent effects and they can lead to the creation of some very impressive routes, they can also have very potent ephemeral effects that can benefit not only the malefactor themselves, but everyone around them. The Fallen of the Third House, very much like all of the others, are a valuable addition to any court. And that, despite their awkwardness towards mortals and their stereotypical lack of social skills, gives them powerful bargaining tools. Thank you very much for listening. In the next Lore's episode, we'll be taking a look at the Fiend's lore of patterns. Take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.